Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between, welcome to Talking at 6. I'm your host, 1-6, aka $11 cashews, aka $90 cat shoes, aka getaway sticks, aka young mischief, aka elderly mice chief, aka Polynesian speed gospel, aka night grits, aka midnight salad, aka 33% George Foreman, aka Sour Patch Uncle, aka Blubber Nuggets, aka what does any of this have to do with graffiti? In today's episode, I'll be discussing / reviewing the 2006 video game Marc Ecko's Getting Up. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the game, it is it's set in almost a reimagined, like a almost slightly futuristic New York City, where it's similar vibes to New York, but isn't directly New York. It's actually called New Radius. And it's almost like it's slightly more futuristic technology wise, but also not super advanced. Like it's not like how do I put this nice way? It's not clearly if you hover car future, it's still vehicles drive on the ground. It still looks like New York, but it has more of there's a police force in it that's more modernized. That seems way more modernized, or honestly, because they're heavily armored and suited up and almost look like stormtroopers. And I believe it's supposed to be set in the future. I can't remember. It's like I said, the game's from 2006. I haven't played it in a long time, so I don't fully remember all the details. So I'm not 100% sure on it, but it does have some a vibe of it's not directly it's not set in 2006. It seems like it might be set slightly further in the past, slightly further in the future, but it's also set in a fictional city, so there's no real direct reference for it. But the game also, one of the things the game did, it's weird, it's Marc Ecko, what does the clothing brand have to do with the game? But it's they got real, the game. A big part of the game is graffiti. A big part of the storyline is fueled by graffiti, and honestly, based on all the trailers and even when you start playing the game, it seems like it's 100% about graffiti. It's just about writing graffiti. It's why does that make a game? Because it's not fully. Eventually, the game, you eventually uncover a bigger conspiracy within the game and realize, this whole thing. But I'll get into that more later. Point I'm getting at is they got actual graffiti legends for this game, real life graffiti legends, graffiti artists, street artists, people that are big names, really big names, that you can probably see actually do legit art. Not legit I say graffiti, not legit okay, how do I put this nice way? Not legit as in I'm against graffiti, but they can see, you probably see their work in actual art exhibits. Pop-up shops might do actual exhibits on them. These aren't just people who are running around these aren't just this isn't random vandals of graffiti. This is more of people who started to that level but are past that level now, to the point of they actually get hired to do murals because people enjoy their art. And not to say people don't enjoy the whole game. Basically, the whole game is based around graffiti is still seen as a crime in the city. It's this police force, the mayor unleashes this super heavily armored police force that are all vested up and really beat down graffiti artists and have them arrested and have them hauled off, and people a lot of times people don't see them again, they disappear and no one really fully knows what happens to them. And it seems the city's super graffiti is a crime, almost how and I think it was Skate 2, where it's skateboarding was a crime. Skateboarding is all legal and skateboarding's a crime. It's oh man, graffiti is such a crime, graffiti is such illegal. And the police force is built up to seem graffiti is such a big deal, graffiti is such a problem. We have to get these graffiti artists off the streets. It's vandalism, these vandals. We can't stand for this. It's a serious problem we have to deal with. And riling up the citizens to get them behind it, when in reality, the whole point of the police force is there's a graffiti artist who's spraying these tags that everyone just seems hey, I don't really get it, kind of mysterious, kind of cryptic, as was these cryptic tags that no one really fully understands what they are. But it turns out it's actually a conspiracy where the current mayor, when he was still running for mayor during the election, during the race for mayor, he had the former mayor who was in office, former mayor who was running for re-election. The current mayor had the former mayor assassinated during during their election, during their political race. The mayor that was in office, the former mayor that was in office, was expected to win. You know, he's projected to win an election. So his opponent had him assassinated. He paid a guy who was in prison. He paid a former that got in prison, got him out of prison, paid him to assassinate him, and then had the assassin assassinated on the same day. I know that sounds really confusing. It's one of those things like you can look it up. You can look up the story on like online on YouTube. There's a video that has all the cutscenes that explains it better than I'm doing, and makes it sound like more coherent. But it's basically the current mayor had his opponent assassinated so he would win the election, and then a graffiti as he's in office, a graffiti artist who knew what happened, knew the story of what happened, decides to go out and like tags, like these cryptic tags of what happened, and it's, instead of like the mayor, like the mayor, in order to like cover up his conspiracy, the mayor is cracking down super hard on graffiti artists in general, just all graffiti in general, trying to find the specific artist who's responsible for it, but they're having no luck because the guy actually is like on his toes and knows what he's doing, so he's staying super hidden. And so he's like hard to find. So they're just cracking down on all graffiti artists in general. And it's like super like militant police force strictly for cleaning up the streets. And they have all these new things like, oh, they have this like new machine that's gonna wash the subway trains to keep them like, they're like, oh, they're graffiti proof subway trains because they get cleaned with this super like intense machine before they go out every day. And so you can't, so it's like, oh, it's impossible to tag them unless you tag them as it's like right after it goes to the machine, or like as it's going through the machine. That's actually one of the missions. You ride on top of the subway train through the train wash or whatever, and then right after it comes out, you spray paint it, like you tag it, paint a mural on it, and just point out how like, oh, the mayor, and kind of call out the mayor for being corrupt, or not necessarily corrupt because you don't fully know. So I guess I'm getting ahead of myself, but so you play as the character Train, who like just wants to be a legendary graffiti artist. He just wants to get his name up. He wants to get up, literally. Like, he wants to get his name up. He wants his name to be known. He wants to be a graffiti legend. Like, that's his whole goal. That's his whole point. That's his whole, like, driving force is he wants to be known for his art. He wants to be a legendary street artist. And, like, as the game goes on, like, one of the first missions is, like, you just go, like, to this area where everyone like tags, or is like really known for tags, and like you get a tag in this area called the Legends Pool. It's like an old abandoned swimming pool, and like there's a smaller pool where like people who put their names in is like all legendary, and like you basically go over somebody else's tag. It's like, oh man, but you kind of go over it to get his name up, and then like that guy sees it, and him and his crew come in and jump him. They beat him down and steal all his paint and just leave him with nothing. And like this mysterious figure like gives you a can of paint and walks away, and just like, yeah man, it sucks, you got jumped, but don't let that keep you down. And it turns out the guy who like gave you the paint and like told you to get back up and told you to get back up on your feet, so like kind of encourage you to keep going, is a guy named Decoy, who's like super mysterious and only pops up like you only see him when he wants you to, like he only pops up when he needs to and he be seen. He turns out he's the guy who's like painting the tags to bring the mayor down. And spoiler alert, eventually, like through him affiliating with the main character, eventually he gets found out and he gets murdered and he gets brought down. But the main character Train takes over for him and starts like putting up his tags as 906 and like guilty, and Sung knew the mayor's last name is Sung, it's Mayor Sung, and 906 was the day he had his opponent assassinated. And so like you see like it's weird things were there because you don't find that out till the end of the game. But then, like if you go back and look in like the earlier levels in the game, and there's like all these like those tags are there from the beginning, like the 906 Sung Nu, like all those things are there from the beginning. You realize, oh, this wasn't just they plugged this in at the end of the game. It's like the whole thing's been there for the whole time. But it's one of those things like where you don't really notice it until it plays with the main character. It's like it interacts with them until the main character comes into play in that story. Because for like a good like half of the game, it's literally just him wanting to be like a big graffiti or him to be a big lame. Ugh. For most of the game, it's just Train wanting to be a big name, him wanting to be a legend. So it's like he's like single-minded, focused on getting up, getting his name up, getting his name big, him being better, him being bigger, and not really like the police force. The police force that's the graffiti police force is known as the CCK, and it's like the mayor's whole campaign is renew. What is it? It's revise, renew, something. Like, I think it's 3R. I think it's the third R. It's not recycle, but it's like, what is it? Revise, renew, rebuild. Like, he wants to make the city bigger and better than it was and get rid of the graffiti and make his city look nicer. And that's his whole thing. Like, that's his whole, like, campaign and, like, his whole speech for the public, when in reality, he just wants to get the guy off the street that's, like, that knows about his conspiracy that's gonna uncover his dirt and like could get him out of office. But Train, like for the longest time, Train has nothing to do with that. He doesn't really care about that. It's him versus this guy Gabe, whose tag Train went over in the beginning in the Legends Pool. Train went over Gabe's tag, and Gabe and his crew beat him down. Gabe's crew is VANR, the Vandals of New Radius, and like they're like their whole thing is like they're big fans of like the New Radius basketball team, and they worship like the star player on the team, and like they all wear his jersey, and like that's their whole thing. And so, like, most of the game, Train's whole thing is getting back at them for beating him up and then crossing out his tag. But honestly, when you think about it, it's kind of stupid. It's like, Train wasn't wrong in the first place. Like, you went over somebody else's tag. How you mad at them for, like, oh, dude crossed you out and beat you down because you went over his thing. And so now your whole plan is just to get revenge on them. Because, oh, how dare they get revenge on you. And, like, honestly, if that, like, it's weird. Like, looking back at it now, I was like, man, at first, when I first played it, I was like, oh, yeah, it's kind of cool. It makes sense. And looking back at it now, I was realizing, oh, that was, like, this whole thing's kind of stupid, but luckily, like, the whole deeper story of, like, the government is really corrupt and the mayor is really corrupt and his police force is more than just getting graffiti off the walls. It's actually really evil, corrupt thing that's trying to hide his things. Like, the fact that, like, one of the people, I don't know if she's necessarily on the police force, but she definitely works for the mayor, is, like, a straight-up assassin with, like, a sniper rifle, like, taking shots at you at one point. It was, like, trying to, like, take you, like, he hires to take people out that oppose him, and it's crazy. But my whole point of doing this episode was like the story of this game. Like I know I didn't do a great job explaining it, but like if you look into it, please look into it yourself. But the actual story of this game would actually make a really good movie. Like just the concept and the storyline of it, and the fact like of the like the voice talent, the voice actors that they got for the game. They got some like big name actors for the game. Like the main character is voiced by Talib Kweli. Rosario Dawson's a voice in it. Brittany Murphy's a voice in it. What's his name? Adam West is like the police chief. Andy Dick plays one of the like mini bosses in it. I know Andy Dick's not the greatest, but like there's also like there's a lot of like bigger names playing characters in this game that seems like wow, kind of out of place for like, especially since like this game like seems like wasn't, I don't know, like it's like it seems like the concept of this game would not fly. It's like it came out in 2006. That's like prime GTA era. That's like I want to say that was like a little after the Def Jam games, but it's like this game isn't one that I've seen like mentioned a lot. I don't see it like brought up on a lot of game lists. I don't see a lot of because like the idea because it was like advertised as just like oh it's a graffiti game. Like even I bought it, it's like oh it's a game about graffiti. That's kind of cool because I kind of like the idea of like graffiti. Like I like graffiti. I think graffiti looks dope, you know. But I don't really know a lot about it, so I'm like I'm not like I'm gonna say like oh super into graffiti. Like I know everything about graffiti. I'm super into the history of it. I'm like that. I just think graffiti looks dope. It's like, oh man, there's a game about graffiti? I mean, like, how does that work out? And then, like, it's also Ecko, Marc Ecko's the guy who, like, owned Ecko, the clothing brand. So it's like, it's a clothing company, has a game about graffiti. Like, looking at it like that, it makes no sense. It's one of those things where, like, you have to play it to get it. And once you play it, you realize, oh, this is actually, like, kind of fun. It's like, it's not necessarily open world, but it's, like, massive. Like, the levels are really big and they're open levels. Like, there's a couple linear levels, but, like, most of the levels are, like, open, where, like, explore everything you can find. Like, there's collectibles everywhere. There's hidden graffiti to find. There's graffiti, like, pictures from graffiti legends. There's, like, secret, like, challenges. And every level has, like, there's certain tags you have to do throughout the game. Like, you have to, like, there's required pieces and there's bonus pieces that you can do just for experience. And then, like, you can control the size. Like, you do them tiny and get them done faster, or you do them bigger and they'll give you slightly more time to do them. But they're, like, harder to get done in time. And if you, like, you lose points if, like, you spray too much paint in one spot, you get a drip, so you lose points for that. And, it's like, there's free-form challenges where it's, like, marker tags or, like, stickers, but, like, you'll walk up to a wall and you'll see that challenge, but you won't know what the full challenge is until you start it. And that part's kind of, like, that part kind of sucks, because, like, it's like, okay, graffiti's that cool, you start it, and then, like, the challenge starts, and those challenges have time limits on it. Now it's like you have to do 12 tags on this wall in a minute and 30 seconds, but you don't know that until you do the first tag. And, like, it's kind of weird because, like, there's combat in the games. Like, you can fight enemies, but, like, if you're running away from enemies and you accidentally, like, start that graffiti challenge, you now have to try to do that. But if the enemy hits you, it takes you out of that. It takes you out of, like, the graffiti mode. It takes you out of, like, the writing mode, like this spray painting or, like, tagging and stuff. It takes you out of that mode, so you can't do it anymore. You gotta finish fighting that person, but the timer doesn't stop. So that challenge is still running, and then, like, if the time runs on that challenge, you just fail it. Doesn't matter. You can't finish it, and then you can't redo that challenge without restart. You have to restart the level to redo that challenge. So the freeform challenges are kind of, like, not fun or kind of hard to do or like kind of a pain. It's like these are like, oh, you see one, you kind of want to like make sure you clear that area before you do it. But then there's also like spots where like there's security cameras all over the city for like for the CCK security cameras, and like you stay in them too long, it summons guards and they come fight you. But there's like certain like freeform challenges that are like in the middle of a camera's like eye line, like the camera sight where like it rotates from side to side, but like the challenge will be in the middle of that. So you have to try to do that challenge before the camera like sees you without the camera seeing you for too long and setting off the guards, which is kind of a pain. Like a lot of the freeform stuff's kind of pain, but like a lot of the like story, like the required graffiti to finish the level is pretty easy. The bonus stuff is kind of easy, like it's usually not too big of a challenge. There's like stealth elements of it, like you can sneak around, like move quietly and like knock out guards, so you don't have to fully fight them. Like you can knock them out from behind and quick knockouts. You don't gotta fully fight them. You don't gotta fully fight enemies and stuff. But there's also like big like statement pieces. Like there's big like things. There's like it's weird. So I look okay. So I've played this game forever. So I looked up the cutscenes online and watched it, and the video of the cutscenes like the cutscenes were getting it was like 14 minutes. But those are only like the fully rendered full motion like full video cutscenes that are like aren't set in the in-game engine. Like they're not in the same engine as like what you play in. Those are like the ones that are like actual cutaway, the ones that are like fully animated cutscenes. But then the ones that are like, but that's only 14 minutes, but there's like a lot of cutscenes that are actually like in the in-game engine that are actually rendered on the actual levels that say a lot more, that have like a lot of the like, oh, more character dynamics, and like you see a lot of more like the boss fight. The boss fights usually have a cutscene where like the boss has a couple lines where you get some backstory on the boss before you fight him. Like one of the guys in VANR, one of the bosses, I forgot his name, was like Spleen or something like that. It's Spleen. And like this dude, like you have to fight him like in this pit in their hideout. It's like this pit that has like these flat screens all on the wall. And this dude has a machete and he has like these two giant dogs with him. And like it's kind of messed up. Like to be clear, it's not like glorifying animal abuse, but you have to like fight the dogs. There's like you have to fight him and his dogs while they're all attacking you, and he's attacking you with a machete, and like the dogs like bite onto you. They bite you and like latch onto your arms, and like you can't like fight again until you like shake. You gotta shake them off before you can swing again. It's an intense fight. But also like the first time I did it, I was like, oh, I did like there's like one required tag, and there's a bunch of like bonus graffiti at level. I think the first time I did the one required one, and then I went straight into the boss fight, not realizing there's bonus after there. There's extra like experience you can get on that level, and there's like a bunch of like hidden like there's a bunch of collectibles. It's a really fun game. It's a lot of like collectibles you can find like hidden. There's like bonus graffiti you can get, bonus like stamina, like bonus like can pressure. Like you get these golden spray paint cans that give you extra can pressure. It means you can like spray paint for longer before you have to stop and shake the can to rebuild the pressure in it. It's really awesome. And then like there's like the storyline's really dope. Like it's really crazy like how detailed, like how good the story is for the game. Like cause looking at it, just even like based on my description, you probably I don't get it. This probably doesn't sound good. Like my description isn't doing this game justice because I'm not great at putting this into words. I don't know how to. I'm not fully like aware how to explain like this game to make it like explain it because like even the marketing for this game couldn't explain it. Like those things were like you just have to play it to get it because like the storyline is so dope. Like yeah, it seems stupid. It's like oh yeah, it's a kid graffiti and because of conspiracy. Yes, but it's like the game, like the character from the character's point of view, it's literally 100% just about the graffiti, and like he slowly gets pulled more and more to the conspiracy and learns more and more about more and more about what's actually going on, and then like slowly gets more invested into it, and then by the time it fully clinks, it doesn't fully click until Decoy's like his dying breath is him explaining to you fully explaining to you what happened and realizing that the guy the that was hired to assassinate the mayor's opponent is the main character's father. So that's why like oh he assassinated the mayor's opponent for him, and then like right after he did that, they assassinated him, which why Train's dad wasn't around when he was growing up because his dad was dead. Like oh, he never met his dad and didn't really know anything about him, and didn't know that like oh there's this whole history about his dad, like how yeah like this whole thing where his dad's actually involved because his grandma never really told him about him. She never told him that part of it. I don't think she fully knew about it. So it was like, there's things like, oh yeah, the guy who knew your dad knows like all these things. And also like, even then, it's like, oh, you can do all this. You could still like, as a movie, you could do all this and follow the story of the game and find out at the end that guess what? Decoy actually didn't know your dad. Actually wasn't your dad. He just needed someone to carry this mission out for him because he knew he couldn't finish it. That would be insane. That would be super dope. Like that'd be crazy. That'd be a crazy twist for a movie. But also like another great, really great point in this game is like the soundtrack is really awesome. Like there's a lot of really dope music on it. There's like the obvious stuff. There's like Survival of the Fittest by Mobb Deep. I think Shook Ones is on there, you know, like super obvious, like but like grimy New York hip hop tracks. But then there's also I Smell a Rat by Big Mama Thornton, which is kind of a like jazzy bluesy song, like kind of jazz, kind of I don't know if it's like jazz or blues, but it has like jazz blues vibes with like the horns and like the guitar and just like I smell a rat, like it's so awesome, like this super crazy like deep voice, like rat, like growly deep voice woman who's like killing it with these like killing it vocally, and like it's like ragtime piano. Like it starts off like just her singing like that line that I sing a rat, I smell a rat, and then when it hits, like it's just ragtime piano, and like the whole song is just about like her like husband coming home drunk at night. She's like, I know you're doing something wrong. I know you're up to something. You won't say it, but I can tell you up to something because you're coming home drunk every night. Like, song is great. The song is so dope. The game put me on to that. It put me on a Rhyme Fest, who like was I don't know if he was ever actually signed to Kanye, but it's like early Kanye artist. It was like affiliated with Kanye like in the early years, like before Good Music, before Big Sean. Like this is like college dropout Kanye was putting on like his homie Rhyme Fest, who's another artist from Chicago, dude, super dope. He has a song called Want It, which is a really great song, and it's actually part of like it plays during a mission, like a specific mission that's really awesome. It's really dope mission where like you're spray painting these sky cars that in the end like it's a different piece, like four different sky cars, and then like at the end they all crash together and it's just one big piece, and it's so dope. But like the song is called Want It, and it's so great. And he has this one line where it's what is it? I might be scared of Jason, but I ain't scared to die, which is like a great line that I relate to and I understand it. Like I really get it. Like it's really dope. It's like, yeah, you know, I'm scared of Jason. Be clear, I'm scared of Jason, but I'm not scared of Jason because of like I'm scared of death. I'm scared of Jason because Jason's terrifying, but I ain't scared to die. You know, I ain't scared of death. It's like I'm scared of dying, but I ain't scared of death itself. I ain't scared to die. Like I ain't scared to die fighting for what I believe in, but I am scared of being murdered for no reason. You know what I mean? Like I was like, that shit hit so hard. And then it has this song by Pharaoh Monk called Book of Judges, and it rips super hard. Like it hits super hard. It's like this big like anti-government song, which I'm like not even like politically. Oh, it's dope because it's political. No, like it hits hard, but like the whole song is just talking about like how not necessarily talking about don't believe the government. It's just like why the like don't why would you trust the government that lies to you about how like the government like constantly lies to you yet we're supposed to believe it, like which I feel like is a dope thing. Not even not to put like my political views on it, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, you know, like it's weird. People's like, oh, I fully blindly trust your government. It's like, especially like I hate to go there, I hate to make it racial, but you know, you gotta look at it from the point of view of a black man. It's like you trust the government that literally bought and sold your ancestors, and you 100%. Why would you 100% believe them? Like, why would you believe anything they say? Why are you willing to fight and die for this country that didn't think of your ancestors as people? And honestly, to this day, probably still don't necessarily fully see you as a person. That see you as disposable. That don't 100%. That doesn't 100% see you as being like worthy of caring about. Like honestly, for like like your ancestors were considered 3/5 of a person. Like what the fuck? Like you weren't allowed to vote. And then when you were allowed to vote, your vote didn't count for a full vote. But I ain't gonna fully go into that. But I ain't gonna fully go into that. We ain't gonna go on that tangent right now. But there's another, like speaking of great lines of song, there's another line. There's a line in that song, there's a sign in the Book of Judges, where like the song at the end of the song he says, "Piss on the Constitution, then burn the Magna Carta," which isn't necessarily like saying, oh, it's not just like an anti-American government. It's also like the British government. The Magna Carta was like what the king's rule is. Essentially, like it's essentially the constitution for the British government. It was what the kings used to explain their power, to like define the power of the king, define the power of the monarchy in Europe, and decide what they could and couldn't do. And essentially says like what the king was allowed to do because of this, but also like, nah, I ain't gonna go into that. I was gonna go into history lesson about how like how kings actually got the power, but that ain't important. That ain't important. That ain't what we here for. Or is it? Nah, that ain't what you're here for. Yeah, they hear me talking about random shit I like. Or are you? But anyway, there's also another song on there is Who Shot You by Biggie, but it's a remix by Surge from System of a Down. I cannot pronounce his last name. I'm not even gonna try. But he has a remix of Who Shot You by Biggie, and it's so dope. Like it's like intense, like kind of high speed, like not fully high speed, but like slightly faster, like more guitar heavy, and like it makes the song like way more intense. And it also plays during a mission where like you're painting on the side of a bridge, like you're not spray painting, like you have a paint roller on the side of a bridge, painting gigantic letters while trying to stay out of a spotlight of a helicopter, trying to stay out of a helicopter spotlight. Because if it sees you, like it shoots at you. They shoot at you like machine guns, so you gotta like dodge a helicopter spotlight while like painting these giant letters down the side of a bridge. And it's like super intense, and the song perfectly fits the moment, and it's dope, and it's really great, and it's just like super grimy, like Biggie lyrics, and the background, like the beat is like intense and it's crazy, dog. Like it hits so hard. Like it's one of those things where like these are songs that like literally I only know about because of this game. And if I never played this game, I wouldn't have heard them. And like video game soundtracks are like really dope and highly underrated. Like yeah, sure, everyone talks about Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk is great at the soundtrack, and the Tony Hawk games do have a great soundtrack. But like Getting Up, I feel like is on the same level. Like it doesn't necessarily have as much diversity as the Tony Hawk soundtrack. Like it's not super diverse. There's a lot of hip hop. There's a lot of like blues and like jazz and like in that vibe. But it's also like this game isn't as spread out as a Tony Hawk game. It doesn't have as wide an appeal. Like it isn't take place in as many places as Tony Hawk game. Where Tony Hawk game like will take place in multiple cities on different continents and multiple countries. This game is essentially like entirely localized within a fictional New York and about graffiti. So like that is like really like it's a really hip hop culture game. Like it's in New York, the birthplace of hip hop is in graffiti, and graffiti is one of like the original elements of hip hop, and it's like super hip hop oriented. But also like the dopest part of it is like the music menu of this game is like on an iPod. It's like scrolling through an iPod, so it's almost like the songs you hear in this game are just playing in the character's headphones while you're playing through, like while he's walking down the street, while he's like running around tagging things. This is the music that's playing in on his iPod. And like I get it, that's kind of a dated reference. So go ahead, but the game came out in '06, so at the time it was super relevant and current and like a really dope thing to do. But like honestly, it looks super awesome. And like before each level, you get to go through like your black book, and you get to pick all the spray paint tags you want to do. You get to pick like all the posters you put up. You get to pick what posters you put up. You get to pick what stickers. You get to pick what marker tags you do. You get to pick what like stencil fucking tags you do. Like it's super in depth and detailed. Like you don't really get to customize the character, but like they make up for it by letting you customize the graffiti. Like you get to pick what tag you do in what colors, and like there's different colors. There's like you don't get to pick each individual color, but there's different like color sets of it. Like oh, you can do like different variations of the same. Like, you get these things, you can do them in different variations. There isn't just one you have to do. Like on certain levels, certain missions, there are certain tags that are locked because you have to do those specifically for the story. But there's also like all like the bonus graffiti, you can put up almost pretty much whatever you want for a bonus tag, and you can go back and play like you can replay the earlier levels with the tags you unlock further on in the game, and just redo that level with different tags and brighter and like with better skills and make it look doper. And just it's a really really fun game. I highly recommend it. Like man, if you can't find it, check it out on. You can't find the copy. Check it out on YouTube. Like it came out. It was '06. It was like PlayStation 2, so it's probably like rough to play. But like, at least look up the gameplay on YouTube. Like look up the story. Like look into it. It's really awesome. It's crazy that this game didn't get a sequel. I think there was talks of it getting a sequel. There were talks of it getting a sequel, but it didn't happen. Honestly, it probably didn't sell the way they thought it was going to, which makes sense because like the marketing for this game wasn't necessarily that great. Like the more like based on the marketing, like the marketing didn't really match up with the story. The concept of this game seems really hard to market. Like even now, this game would be hard to market. Seem like it wouldn't be like a place where like people wouldn't really be into it. But it's one of those things where like I really enjoyed it. It's a really dope story. It's really in depth. But like the soundtrack is amazing. I like honestly just check out the soundtrack. You can just check out the soundtrack alone. Like I honestly feel like this soundtrack is on par with the Tony Hawk soundtracks, which are it's like the god of video game soundtracks. Like if you're ranking video game soundtracks, Tony Hawk's at the top. Getting Up is probably number 2. Like honestly, if all the Tony Hawk games share number 1, Getting Up probably comes in at number 2. It's definitely top 5 video game soundtracks. Highly recommend it. But yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for giving me the time today. Thanks for listening to this. Thanks for checking this out. Please like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel if you want to check out the future episodes. Follow me on Twitter at TalkThat6. You can follow me on Facebook at TalkingThat6. And I just want to leave you guys with this. I might not be the greatest. I might not be shit, but I will always talk that 6.